I mean, doesn't the Constitution almost like doesn't say you can do that in the party, but I mean, doesn't the Constitution give them the right to even do that?
So, Roger, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on Donald Trump pulling over $500 million from UCLA? I think federal funding should never go to education. Period. I think the people that are asking for it are asking for trouble. And now some people some people might like the idea of why he pulled it. Some people might think that it was the reason that he pulled it was a bad idea. I don't even care what the reason was. I want federal funds pulled from K through 12 as well as the universities. I would agree with you, but I also want to introduce the context that the student population at UCLA is two-thirds foreign students. So, I mean, the fact that we're even funding on a federal basis, a campus that doesn't actually have attendance from, United States citizens, like that to me is my main point of contention with UCLA. It's disgusting. Like back in the 70s, like UCLA used to be free. Like, Roger, what people have to go through, to get their kids into schools in Southern California is disgusting. Like, I'm all for Becky from Full House. Like, I think that every parent that does have those means and their kids are able to academically qualify, I definitely think that they should be utilizing that pathway.
So this kind of happened when, in my view, it kind of happened when people tried to make a degree as the benchmark for a job, and so we took it away from the GED people. We took it away from the people who may have 8th grade education, but they did way better than the college degree person. And we kind of put ourselves in this little conundrum of, well, we're just gonna out of the blue glorify this thing. Well, in doing that, now you start to weaponize against many of the Americans. So it may not seem that way, but from my point of view, in my culture structure, the way we see it, the minute you start saying, okay, this is okay, but now we're going to create something, policy right to work. Now it's not okay. And then 20, 30 years later, you see the ramifications of all of it. If you had just left it alone, let it live and die organically, it would have been okay. But we tend to, here in America, weaponize for one or another and not realize that you're basically getting the outcome that you just spoke of a moment ago.
So, do you believe that in certain concentrations of study in college, it's to have you recite information, or is the whole concept to teach you how to think?
I'm an honor roll student. It is to recite information.
I don't know. I think my track, my teacher gives a lot of critical thinking.
Right. So, when we look at the state of social issues in America, the fact that a school like UCLA has an enrollment of two-thirds foreign students, when there's otherwise an opportunity for American students, which, by the way, a lot of American students are denied, entry into, UCLA on a yearly basis. So the fact that two-thirds of the population is foreign students, that's not indicative of the attitudes towards educational goals in America. That's indicative of people selling seats abroad.
Dr. Adams, let me ask you a question. Why do you think mathematics is so difficult to teach or so difficult to learn?
Average attention span of the American populace.
But it's also the material itself, correct? I mean, it's a giant large language model with all kinds of symbols and abstract concepts that, it's kind of difficult for the average person to just adapt because it's essentially it's its own language.
There's a reason why they don't allow you to have programmable scientific calculators when you take your SATs.
They do now, and it's not the SATs anymore. It's
Oh, they do now?
Yeah, I'm about to say, what is he talking about?
Let me finish. And the test now is ASVAB, which is aligned with career tech.
They don't take SATs and ACTs anymore?
No, the 80% of the country has moved away from that. And they're moving towards a company called ASVAB. That's the test.
You know, I asked this Indian gentleman, a guy who had a master's degree in computer science and was a software developer working on apps for Walgreens and Boeing and other major Fortune 500 corporations. I said, why are there so many Indian H-1B visa software developers? And he goes, John, there's 1.4 billion people in India. That's a lot of engineers.
You know, they pulled a nice scam during the automobile situation where they weaponized that. It was actually genius on their part. They weaponized that, and they had these little call centers in certain parts of the country. Pakistan did it too, where they would teach people how to pass interviews. And what's so amazing is they weaponized the way for the people who trampoline, it's called trampoline off of the automobile industry into these other certain areas, and they would pull their people in by getting this type of scenario where those people who came from the centers would get interviews from people who were placed in certain areas. So I speak a little bit of Gujarati. And what's so funny is I remember a lady in the HR department tell somebody, hey, just get here, I'll guarantee that you get an interview. So it isn't that these industries necessarily need it, it's just they did a very smart thing. They said, hey, here are some people who want to get cheaper labor and they don't really want to pay the American-born IT guy.
Wait, hold on. What you're saying doesn't make a bit of sense. It tells me that you don't know how these visas are issued. You have to first exhaust all of your options here domestically before you can even create the conditions for opening a job rec for bringing someone from abroad. I mean, like, this is an example of Clubhouse where people just say words and they don't know what they're talking about.
Okay, you interrupted me, so let me ask you a question. What happens here in Silicon Valley?
Well, considering I worked in Silicon Valley for 30 years, what exactly do you want to know about it? It sounds like there's a lot of things that you don't understand about it.
I just asked you a question and you're avoiding.
I don't understand your question because what you said was gibberish, but go ahead.
You interrupted me, which is your right. Then I asked you a question about how does it work.
You asked me or asked me?
Oh, well, let's use the Oxford Dictionary. OSC is the correct pronunciation, but we all got different dialects here in America. So you can play that game if you want to. The correct pronunciation is OSC. Even you're not pronouncing it correctly. So
I disagree. I would pronounce it axe.
Again, you have an American.
I'm going to start asking questions.
I'm not going to get you upset. And now here comes somebody trying to help you.
Wait, Celia, are you sure that the Oxford Dictionary says os?
I'm talking to the one guy who interrupted me. Hold on for a second. So can you answer my question for a third time? How does the process work here in Silicon Valley?
Which process are you referring to? You're talking about
the one you interrupted on.
Oh, so you want to explain how visas work? It's perfect, thank you. So if you're hiring, let's say for an engineer, for example, the first thing that you must do is you must open the job rec for domestic applicants. You cannot open the applicant pool to foreign workers. You're forbidden from doing that until you've exhausted all options. And once the job rec's been open for a reasonable amount of time and you don't find qualified applicants, then what you do is you have to get approval from HR to be able to create a job application that would allow you to take on people come from elsewhere. Now, do you want to disagree with what I just said?
Yes, and allow me 60 seconds, and you can have a fight.
You can have 90 seconds because I prefer to give more time for you to interrupt.
I know you're going to interrupt me.
No, I won't. I'm going to give you 90 uninterrupted.
So I have been in software since the days of this American Megatrends, Earthlink, or Mindspring before Earthlink. I've been around for quite a while. People have jumped past the process that you just claimed is in existence, which it is, but they've jumped past it with these contracts through temp agencies. So you're saying a half truth, and that's why when you interrupted to try to be obtuse, you actually failed. They've been doing this for over 2 decades, jumping all that entire process that you're talking about, getting people in through the temp agency. But you got the last word, sir. It was a great conversation. You got the last word.
Yeah, let me ask you this: Are you a hiring manager?
In the field that I'm in now, yes.
Great. And so you have hired people. You have hired foreign workers.
No, I personally refuse to.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you haven't seen the process through, then that's kind of what we're saying.
No more questions.
Yeah, and I think the restriction, Roger, is they have to have that applicant pool open to domestic employees for a year. And 1 year period is seen as a reasonable amount of time to try to find an applicant. And only then can you say, hey, I want to hire somebody who's a non-citizen. Let me try to get some paperwork here. And then you have to establish that, okay, you're bringing in that foreign worker. Are they just a migrant worker, or is this a long-term thing? If it's a long-term thing, then you have to demonstrate like a 10-year period or a 4-year period. There's all sorts of restrictions like that, at least in biotech, or for trying to find talent. So, C-Light, Trey, the thing you said about the temp agencies, that's only one exploit. So I'm not sure.
No, I agree with you, sir. It's just that he's talking in absolutes as if these things don't happen. So thank you for acknowledging that it is one aspect. And I acknowledge that he spoke half-truth also. But when he interrupted as if what he was saying was a superior thing. And it's only half-truth.
Well, typically what I say is a superior thing, but carry on.
It's just good to have good competition. I mean, hey, you may be right on some days. It's all good. But respectfully, this conversation has many layers. And the way people outside of the country, and I think Dr. Adams might appreciate this, weaponize the loopholes that you may not know exist. That's where the problem really lies. And that's why people like Dr. Adams get frustrated, because there's a lot of loopholes that Americans have not closed because they're unaware that it even exists.
But the loopholes help Americans because they're American business owners. So it's weird to say like Americans versus Americans. I think you should specify the special interests and what the loopholes are.
So I before we go down the rabbit hole, the way that this conversation started was I asked Roger what his personal opinions were as far as Donald Trump and his administration pulling $500 million of funding away from UCLA. Roger gave his opinion. I gave my opinion in saying that in greater context, people should also understand 2/3 of their population are international students. And I feel that it's inherently unfair that even $500 million funding goes to a public school, okay, to basically have an enrollment that is 2/3 international students.
Yeah, that is weird.
And they're also, they're paying like double, right? I mean, international tuition is typically significantly lower.
Yeah, but what I think Dr. Adams is talking about, that money order, some way, somehow, the Americans are not at the forefront of the benefit. And even kind of
that's my whole point. And I also mentioned the fact that in the 70s, UCLA used to be damn near free. Okay, so the fact that, as a state citizen of the state of California, born and raised, I'm not an implant, okay, I find it very troubling at the fact that, my nieces and nephews applying for college now have to pay, $40,000 to $50,000 a year.
Yeah, that is troubling. Keely, I'm just saying they're raking it in, right? If they're getting sizable.
Oh yeah, they're getting it from both ends. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think colleges, their number one thing, and maybe you, Holly, and Doctor may appreciate this. If they would just stop changing the book structure every year or two, they can cut at least 1/3 of the money off.
That's not the issue. That's not the issue. UCLA's issue is that they're selling seats abroad. Okay, and this is also why I brought up Operation Varsity Blues. People in Orange County found a loophole that went across the whole entire country into buying their kids into college, which in my personal opinion has always been historically consistent. And I don't think that it should have ended in the federal government coming down and throwing Becky from Full House into jail. 2/3 of the population in a public school that does not benefit its state citizens, I can understand why the parents found the back door.
Respectfully, the curriculum changes every 7 years per state, and I can validate that if need be, but I don't think you guys really want to read it.
So, Joe B., that's one part of it, but the main linchpin of where this becomes an issue is the enrollment outreach. They're not showing up to college or high school campuses in America. They're not showing up and engaging in that type of outreach by having, conversations with Department of Education heads in foreign governments the same way that they're having conversations with state governments here in America. They're not. It's the enrollment outreach that's the issue. They're selling seats abroad.
And you're not even... Career tech is growing, and so it's going beyond college bound.
But let's expand Dr. Adams' point on another part of the spider web. It used to be, and I'm going to speak up for the GED class, it used to be where we used to have shop and we used to have all these things for those children who maybe were not college ready to be part of a lot of these unions or workforces or industries or what have you. So to his credit, what he's bringing up now, if we use this as an example where we're weaponizing the college, which for many people is a prereq for entry level to our interview, then where do all these other American people go? Because they're already separated from no college degree already. The shop steward and half of that stuff is gone, except in certain little counties here and there. So what is really the outcome if we were to stretch his theory all the way out? Well, that means that a lot of Americans are going to go without, and people on the outside of America who can financially pay for people to exist in these colleges will be the supreme people in 2040.
But it's not individual people that are sponsoring those F1 visas from kids outside the country. It's foreign governments. Let's be very clear.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
The donors put up like a token quota, right? So they're like, hey, we need this many or whatever. It's interesting because I think this is coupled in with the problem of like low birth rate and competition. Something like India has more children in an honor roll, like meaning they do well in school or higher than we have people. And so I think there's something to be said about abandoning the children of America in the face of scouting for talent elsewhere. So maybe it makes sense at a national level, but at a local level, it's very vicious and unfair.
That's why when he asked me, was it about critical thinking or just reciting? A lot of it's just reciting at this point. Critical thinkers are kind of shut down. It's not, if you want to compete against something someone said in the class or have a different rules set that you created in your